They didn't bring a guillotine to the all-hands, but they didn't need to. The room was glass on 3 sides, a stage box built for spectacle, cameras perched in the corners like patient crows. Brad liked to call it radical transparency. The stream counter in the top right of the big screen ticked past 300 live viewers. Employees dialing in from satellite offices, curious interns on their lunch breaks, a few board members with their mics blessedly muted. My name tag still read Tom C., Principal Cryptography, and I could feel the weight of 3 decades pressing into those 14 characters. Brad didn't meet my eyes. He adjusted the cuffs on a blazer that belonged in a magazine spread, not a server room, and smiled at the lens as if it were a bathroom mirror. Today, he said, voice all honey and brand. We're aligning our talent with our AI-first future. He used words the way a pickpocket uses elbows. By the time you notice the contact, something important is already gone. Tom, he went on, pivoting to me like a talk show host, you've been a pillar here, but the market is moving and we have to move with it. We're sunsetting certain legacy skill sets to make space for digital natives who can ship quantum-ready architectures. A low ripple crossed the engineering floor outside the glass. I recognized the sound. It's the same current that moves through a crowd when the weather turns. Not quite thunder, but the promise of it. I didn't reply. You don't interrupt a weather system. You brace for it. Brad gestured toward a slide that never needed to exist. Bullet points about agility, velocity, and AI-enhanced security, all dressed in a gradient that matched his pocket square. In one corner, a tiny red dot throbbed, the internal live stream still rolling. I could make out the chat racing by on the side monitor. Question marks, praying hands, a lonely skull emoji that felt like honesty. We're offering a generous package, he said, gliding over the words like a skater over thin ice. 6 months pay, extended benefits, a strong reference. We'll ensure a smooth transition of knowledge to our core platform team. I let the quiet do push-ups. If there's one gift the Navy gave me, it's the ability to measure silence in seconds and meaning in inches. Between Brad's second and third sentence, I saw the intern at the back widen his eyes. Between his fourth and fifth, the HR partner lifted a folder just high enough to hide her mouth. Even the cameras seemed to lean in. Before we proceed, I said, voice steady enough to hold coffee. Just a quick housekeeping item. The stream. Oh! Brad snapped his fingers at the AV tech, as if the kid were a light switch. We'll trim this later. The tech shook his head. It's auto-archived. Not loud, not rebellious. Just a fact that landed between us like a dropped wrench. Brad's smile pulled tighter. Then we'll annotate it, he said, and waved the termination tablet toward me. Let's get the formalities done. I took the tablet. Pages of legalese scrolled under my thumb. Non-disparagement, non-compete, non-disclosure. The choreography of erasing a person while praising their contributions. Somewhere in the clauses, a line about intellectual property shimmered like heat over asphalt. Not the words themselves, I'd seen thousands just like them, but the absence of a date stamp where there should have been one. I felt a small lever click into place at the back of my mind. Quick clarification, I said. When did legal file the final assignment paperwork for the pre-2011 cryptographic framework? The one the legacy platform still relies on. Brad blinked, which is to say he stalled. Legal handles legal, he said, then remembered the camera and dialed up a warmer tone. Tom, let's not get in the weeds. Today is about forward momentum. I signed where they asked me to sign. The stylus moved, and the room exhaled. Somewhere out in the open office, a coffee grinder fired up and sputtered out again. I put the pen down, folded my hands, and looked at the kid who had just performed a public beheading with a smile. Then forward it is, I said. He stood to shake my hand, and I did what 31 years of military bearing has hardwired into me. I stood, too, and made the handshake clean. The grip lasted exactly as long as it needed to. No hard feelings, Brad said, eyes darting between me and the lens. This isn't personal. It never is, I said, until the bill comes due. He laughed. Too high, too fast. Tom loves his Navy lines, he told the stream. playing to the balcony he believed he owned. One last nugget for the road? I considered giving him the quiet. Instead, I gave him something to keep him awake. Don't fire the artillery, I said, until you know whose ammo you're using. Took him a beat to process, and in that beat the chat window exploded with emojis, the digital equivalent of a gasp. He glanced to the AV tech again, searching for a button that didn't exist. After a moment, he flashed a final smile, the kind that photographs well and ages poorly. We wish Tom the very best. The door clicked behind me. Outside the fishbowl, noise returned in cautious increments. A phone ringing, a chair rolling, someone muttering sorry like a reflex. I knew the choreography. People stare at their screens as if screens can absolve them. A junior engineer half rose, then sank back down. My name rippled across Slack in the peripheral vision of 100 monitors. My desk hadn't shrunk, but it felt like it had. I took down the photograph of Rex, my German shepherd, his ears cocked in permanent suspicion. Next to it, the Halsey in a cheap frame, ocean spray frozen in blue-gray pixels. I pack slow, not because I needed to, but because care is a form of dignity you can still give yourself when other people won't. Cables coiled, challenge coins pocketed, a coffee mug I'd rescued from the dishwasher one too many times. I left the corporate laptop the way you leave a borrowed suit on a chair. Clean, folded, not missed. Halfway through the bottom drawer, my fingers found a card I didn't remember keeping. Sarah Walsh, intellectual property. The ink had bled a little at the edges, the way ink does when time breathes on it. I slid it into the inside pocket of my jacket, a talisman that suddenly weighed more than paper should. Tom. David Kim's voice arrived from the aisle, softer than fluorescent light. CTO by title, engineer by soul, the only manager who still wrote code when the lights went off. He looked at me the way a medic looks at a soldier who's already left the battlefield, checking for wounds the eye can't find. You okay? He asked. Ask me tomorrow, I said, when the adrenaline stops pretending to be calm. His mouth twitched. For what it's worth, this wasn't the call I would have made. I know, I said and meant it. Around us, keyboards tapped out a stuttering rain. Take care of the team. He started to say something else, then didn't. Restraint is a language, too. We shook hands, and he stepped back into the current that would soon drag him wherever the board decided the new river flowed. I carried the box past the glass room. The stream had ended. The camera lights were dark, their unblinking attention spent. But even empty, the room kept its shape, a place to make private cruelty look like public strategy. In its reflection, I saw myself the way the company preferred to remember me, small, moving, replaceable. Then the reflection shifted, and I remembered the thing they'd chosen to forget. Buildings don't stand without foundations, and some foundations know exactly where the load-bearing walls are. On the sidewalk, the late afternoon sun baked the city into neat rectangles. A delivery truck idled at the curb, driver scrolling through a playlist. I set the box on the passenger seat of a cab whose interior smelled faintly of cinnamon and Armor All. The driver gave me a look that asked, "Airport or home?" I answered home, but meant something more like, closer to whatever's next. My phone vibrated in my pocket. New Slack pings stacked like dominoes. An HR auto email landed with a cheerful chime. Exit survey. Tell us how we did. I deleted it without opening. 2 messages from unknown numbers. One from Brad, all faux concern, asking about best practices for knowledge transfer. I turned the screen face down on my knee, closed my eyes, and let the hum of traffic sand the edges off the day. By the time we hit the 3rd red light, the heat had worked its way into my jacket, and the business card had warmed against my ribs. It felt almost alive there, like a small animal. I slid it out again, read the name, and memorized it in the way you memorize coordinates you might need to recite under stress. The driver glanced at me in the mirror. I nodded, and he nodded back. 2 men moving people through a city, each carrying cargo the other couldn't see. At home, Rex barreled into my knees in a perfect, clumsy tackle. He sniffed the box like it might bite me, decided he didn't trust it, then leaned his full weight against my shin until I steadied. I put the box on the table, poured water into a glass that should have held bourbon, and stood by the window while the apartment settled. Somewhere in the shut-off corridors of my mind, another room lit up. A filing system, a date, a clause whose words I hadn't read in years but could still recite. 72 hours. Trigger on involuntary termination. Reversion of rights. Radical transparency, I thought, staring at my reflection in the glass. Fine. Let's see how it looks when the lens turns around. Murphy's Diner hadn't changed since the Bush administration. Neon sign flickering like a heartbeat, counters patched with duct tape, and a waitress named Gloria who could remember your regular order longer than most managers remembered your last raise. I slid into the booth by the window, Rex's leash wrapped around my wrist, though technically dogs weren't allowed. Gloria gave me a look, saw the box of office junk at my feet, and just nodded. Some people know when not to ask. The coffee was black enough to chew. I stared into it like it might offer coordinates. My mind wasn't racing. It was cataloging. The way you do when you've spent your life solving problems measured in milliseconds and megabytes. The humiliation at the meeting barely stung. What stuck was the precision of Brad's words. Legacy, restructuring, digital natives. They weren't random. Someone had scripted that speech. Someone had planned my exit weeks before the cameras rolled. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the business card. Sarah Walsh, Intellectual Property Law. The edges were soft, the ink fading. But I remembered Tony, her brother, saying, "If they ever try to bury you, make sure you own the shovel." I'd never needed to test that advice. Until now. Outside, the city hummed, neural traffic, drone deliveries, people chasing something they'd never catch. I opened my old phone, the one still running on an unregistered line from my Navy contracting days, and typed a short encrypted message. To Sarah.W. Subject, clause check. Body. Provisional patent filed March 15, 2011. Terminated yesterday. Confirm reversion trigger, 72 hours. Still valid? Then I hit send and waited. Rex thumped his tail once, the sound of a question mark. "Don't look at me like that," I said. "We've been through worse storms." Truth was, I didn't feel like a soldier. I felt like an old mechanic watching kids crash the ship he built. But there was a familiar kind of calm settling in, the one that used to come right before things got loud. The phone buzzed 20 minutes later. Sarah's reply was short. On it. Need the original filing number and notarized copy if you still have them. I smiled, not the happy kind, more like muscle memory. At home, the bourbon tasted like old brass. I hadn't touched the drawer in years, but muscle memory guided my hand. Bottom left, under the tax returns, behind the warranty for a printer that hadn't worked since Obama's first term. The manila envelope was still there. No label, just the feel of something that had once mattered enough to hide. When I slid it open, dust curled like smoke. There it was, the provisional patent signed and stamped with a faint notary seal. Encryption architecture framework for secure federal communications. My name at the top. Not the company's. Mine. The date hit me like recoil, March 15, 2011. That was the year TechFlow almost collapsed. Funding freezes, layoffs, panic meetings. We were improvising survival. I'd filed the framework myself because the company lawyers were too busy patching contracts to notice. Tony had leaned across a bar table, whispering, "Keep it under your name until they pay you what it's worth. You can always assign it later." They never did, and I never assigned it. I took a photo of the notarized page and sent it to Sarah with one word. Attached. 10 minutes passed. Then my phone rang. "Tom," she said, voice low but sharp. "Please tell me this isn't what I think it is." "It's exactly what you think it is." I heard papers shuffling, the rustle of someone realizing gravity had just shifted. "You filed this under your personal entity," she said. "And it includes a reversion clause for involuntary termination?" "Correct. Triggered after 72 business hours." "Jesus, Tom. Do you have any idea what this means?" "I think I do. It means the encryption framework your company uses for federal contracts, your company, is about to revert entirely to your ownership. That's not a lawsuit. That's an extinction-level event." I leaned back, watching Rex circle his bed before collapsing into it. You sure it still holds? It's airtight. You even renewed the provisional into a non-provisional 2 years later under your name. No corporate reassignment ever filed. That got a low whistle out of me. Guess I'm still old-fashioned. I believe in backups. Tom, listen to me. If you do nothing, in 72 hours, TechFlow will lose all rights to its encryption system. Their contracts depend on that tech. They'll be operating illegally if they don't renegotiate with you. That's so? Yes. And they're not going to see it coming until it's too late. I took a slow sip of bourbon. Good. Sarah paused. You're not planning something reckless, are you? Nothing reckless, I said. Just corrective. She exhaled hard. You have a talent for understatement. After the call, the apartment was quiet enough to hear the refrigerator hum. I pulled out an old legal pad and started sketching like I used to. Bullet points, arrows, contingencies. Not for code this time, but for people. Phase 1. Confirm reversion filing. Phase 2. Wait for the trigger window to close. Phase 3. Watch them burn their own bridge. I'd learned long ago you don't have to sabotage a system that's already built on arrogance. You just have to step aside before gravity does its job. By midnight, the reversion notice was uploaded to the USPTO portal. I double-checked every field, every signature, every timestamp. The system pinged. Submission confirmed. And just like that, 31 years of sweat and silence became mine again. Legally, irrevocably, beautifully mine. I didn't celebrate. I just leaned back, watching the progress bar fade to green, and listened to Rex snore like a metronome. Somewhere out there, a fresh-faced CEO was sleeping soundly, believing he'd won. Tomorrow, he'd wake up to find his empire built on sand. I finished my drink and whispered to the empty room, "Don't fire your artillery until you know where your ammo depot is." Rex twitched his ear. Maybe he understood. Maybe he didn't. But for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. The kind that only comes before the storm. Morning came gray and heavy, the kind of light that makes even victories feel borrowed. I woke before the alarm, instinct honed by decades of on-call nights and system failures. The clock read 5:42, 70 hours left. Rex was already up, pacing the kitchen like he could smell change in the air. I brewed coffee strong enough to strip paint and sat at my old desk, the one I'd built myself back in '96 when TechFlow still fit inside a warehouse. The wood was dented with the ghosts of coffee mugs and long nights, a perfect battlefield map for what was about to happen. My inbox lit up like a switchboard. 30 messages from old coworkers. Some sincere. Sorry to hear what happened, Tom. You deserved better. Others were pure curiosity disguised as sympathy. Any truth to the rumor you're suing the company? I ignored them all. The only name I looked for wasn't there. David Kim. Smart man. He knew silence was worth more than comfort right now. By 6 o'clock, my phone vibrated with Sarah's number. "Morning," I answered. "You didn't sleep, did you?" she said. "I'm not in the sleeping phase yet." "I checked again," she continued. "Your reversion notice is logged, timestamp verified. It's live. They can't reverse it without your consent. Then the clock's running." She hesitated. "You know they'll come after you, right? TechFlow's legal team has no sense of mercy." "They won't have time," I said, watching the sun slide across my kitchen floor. "They'll be too busy trying to explain to their investors why their patents now belong to a man they fired on camera." Sarah sighed, a mix of admiration and dread. "Just remember, Tom, in corporate wars, winning isn't always surviving." "I'm not after survival." I sipped my coffee. "I'm after memory." After she hung up, I opened the old encrypted drive, Halsey Archive, named after my destroyer. Inside were blueprints, notes, algorithms, all time-stamped and labeled from years of work. I'd never been the kind of man to write a manifesto, but every line of that code was one. A quiet declaration that experience still mattered. I made a secure backup, loaded it into cold storage, and smiled. If TechFlow tried to rebuild the encryption from scratch, they'd find themselves lost in a labyrinth I designed. It wasn't vindictive, it was just reality. You can't copy instinct. By 9 a.m., word had already started leaking. My old Navy buddy, Tony, called out of the blue. "Jesus, Tom, what did you do?" "Just filed some old paperwork," I said. He laughed, the deep, knowing kind. "You always did like to follow protocol, just not the one they expected." "Tell me something," I asked. "How long before a company like TechFlow realizes it's sitting on someone else's patent?" "Depends," Tony said. "If they've got good counsel, maybe a day. If they've got a Brad in charge, 3 days. Try 5. We both laughed. The kind of laugh that tastes like salt and gunpowder. The sound of men who've seen arrogance sink ships. I spent the rest of the day laying low. No posts, no messages, no sudden moves. Let the silence work. Corporate ecosystems hate silence. It breeds paranoia. Around noon, David Kim finally texted. "David, you didn't hear this from me, but Brad's in a panic. Legal just flagged your patent filing. They're calling it a clerical error." I typed back one line. "Tom. Then let them pray the clerk can fix it." Hours passed. I took Rex for a walk through the neighborhood. Quiet streets, autumn leaves crunching underfoot. The air had that sharp edge of early October, where everything smells like endings. By the time we got back, my phone was full of new alerts. Screenshots, mostly internal Slack messages leaking from TechFlow. Someone had anonymously posted a link to the USPTO registry. My name, clear as daylight, under inventor and owner. The panic had gone public. Within minutes, the hashtags started trending on the corporate side of social media. Hashtag PatentGate. Hashtag TechFlow Meltdown. Reporters were circling. Investors were demanding statements. And somewhere in that glass office, Brad Hoffman was realizing he'd just been the first domino. I poured another coffee and opened the live feed from the company's internal channel. Employees posting reaction memes. Legal issuing no comment notices. HR pretending nothing was wrong. It was chaos wearing a tie. At 5 p.m., David called. His voice was low, urgent. "They know you triggered the reversion. Brad's furious. He told legal to suppress the news until after the FBI demo next week." I smiled. "He's going to demo a product his company no longer owns." "Exactly. Sarah just called me. She says if they present your algorithm, it's willful infringement. Federal level stuff." "Then don't stop him," I said. "What?" "Let him go on stage. Let him show everyone the tech. The bigger the spotlight, the bigger the fall." David was silent for a beat. "You're playing a long game, aren't you?" "I'm not playing," I said quietly. "I'm teaching." That night, I watched the city lights flicker from my window. Somewhere in the skyline, TechFlow's logo glowed bright blue. Confident, proud, oblivious. The empire looked unshakable from the outside. But I knew better. I'd seen plenty of warships that looked unsinkable until the hull cracked just once. I reached down, scratched Rex's ear, and muttered, "Tick-tock, buddy. 72 hours. He wagged his tail, unaware his owner had just turned time into a weapon. By Friday morning, TechFlow's headquarters was on fire, metaphorically, for now. I didn't need insider info. The chaos leaked on its own. Employees were posting cryptic memes. Investors were calling emergency board meetings, and Brad's favorite catchphrase, "Disruption is growth," had been repurposed into 1,000 sarcastic tweets. I watched from my kitchen with a mug of burnt coffee and Rex snoring by my feet. There's a special kind of satisfaction that comes when arrogance finally meets math. They had 72 hours. As of 9:17 a.m., that number was 0. I opened the official USPTO confirmation email one more time, savoring the precision. Reversion complete. Primary ownership restored to Thomas J. Caldwell. It was sterile, bureaucratic, and beautiful, a legal obituary written in Helvetica. 10:05, my phone lit up. David Kim again. This time his voice was less urgent, more exhausted. "Tom, you're not going to believe this," he said. "Brad still plans to go through with the FBI presentation." I chuckled. Of course he does. When a man's drowning, he convinces himself the water's a promotion. Legal warned him, twice, but he keeps saying the clause is invalid. He called it old man paperwork. That one actually made me laugh. Then let him prove it on stage. David hesitated. You sure about this? If they present your algorithm publicly, it'll cause a scandal big enough to nuke the company. David, I said softly, that's not my problem anymore, but it is your opportunity. Silence on the line, then a low exhale. You know, Tom, sometimes I forget you used to command a destroyer. Once you've seen a ship go down, you stop trying to save captains who steer toward icebergs. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. See you on the other side. I hung up, turned off notifications, and pulled up the TechFlow event livestream. The company had rented out the downtown conference hall. Sleek, polished, with a 40-foot LED wall flashing slogans like NextGen is now and trust in innovation. It was theater pure and simple. Brad strutted onto the stage in a navy blazer that looked expensive enough to offend God. His smile was pure silicon, bright, synthetic, too perfect to be real. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, what you're about to see will redefine secure communications for federal defense. He gestured toward a screen behind him. The UI loaded. I recognized it instantly. My architecture, my code, my fingerprints in every line. Brad's voice rolled on. This proprietary encryption engine was developed right here at TechFlow. Somewhere backstage, a shadow moved. A woman in a dark blazer stepped out mid-sentence. Tall, deliberate, her heels clicking like a countdown. Legal, she whispered in his ear. The mic picked it up. Brad, she said, we can't demo this. We don't own it anymore. The crowd shifted, a wave of murmurs rolling through the seats. Brad froze, forced a laugh. Little technical hiccup, folks, we'll be right. No, she interrupted, louder now. The patent reverted to Caldwell. It's official. Using this code is a federal offense. The silence was nuclear. You could feel the room break. Phones came up. Screens lit like gunfire. The FBI liaison in the front row whispered to a colleague, then stood. Mr. Hoffman, the agent said, holding up a printout. Is this the same patent referenced in your proposal? Brad blinked. That can't be. It's public record, she replied. We've all got copies now. Brad stammered something about clerical misunderstandings, but the crowd was already half gone. Consultants, investors, contractors quietly filing out like survivors leaving a battlefield they hadn't signed up for. On my screen, the stream cut to the TechFlow logo, then to black. Rex lifted his head, ears perked. I reached down and patted him. That's the sound of arrogance hitting gravity, boy. Within an hour, my inbox was a graveyard of messages. Brad calling for damage control, board emergency meeting, FBI requesting clarification. Then came David's text. David, you just turned the company upside down. Brad's out for blood. Board wants to talk to you. ASAP. I typed back one word. Good. By the time the sun dipped below the skyline, my phone rang again. This time, from a private number. The voice was calm, clipped, expensive. Mr. Caldwell, it said. This is Margaret Lynn, Counsel for TechFlow Dynamics. The board would like to resolve this matter swiftly and amicably. Amicably? I repeated, smiling into the dark. That's corporate for you, Win. Please stop punching us. I'm authorized to discuss terms, she continued. Then you'll get my terms, I said. By morning. When the call ended, I leaned back and let the quiet return. The city outside flickered like circuitry, every light another reminder that the systems I built were still running. Still mine. Rex hopped onto the couch beside me, pressing his head against my shoulder. Guess it's time to cash in, partner, I said. He thumped his tail once. I opened a blank email, subject line terms, and began to type, slow, deliberate, surgical. TechFlow may continue using patent hashtag 8.472.639 under exclusive license. $25 million upfront payment plus 8% ongoing royalties. Immediate termination of CEO Brad Hoffman. David Kim to assume CTO role with full authority. Public acknowledgement of my authorship across all platforms. Any further infringement triggers triple damages. I paused, added one final line. This isn't revenge. This is realignment. Then I hit send. Rex sighed like a man satisfied with justice. I poured myself another bourbon, leaned back, and watched the reflection of the skyline shimmer in the glass. Let's see if they can build their future, I murmured, without stealing their past. By sunrise, the world had caught up to the blast. TechFlow's stock had dropped 28% overnight. Forums were dissecting the legal filings like crime scene analysts, and Brad's face was plastered across every tech blog under headlines like the CEO who lost his own company's crown jewel. I hadn't left my apartment. Didn't need to. Sometimes victory travels on its own schedule. My phone rang again. David Kim. He didn't waste time. They accepted Tom. Every term. The board caved at 4:30 a.m. I exhaled slowly, the way you do when the last domino falls exactly where you planned. All of them. Every bullet point. They even added one of their own. Full apology statement from Brad. Already drafted, I bet. You're famous, you know that? David said. Investors are calling it the Caldwell correction. That one made me laugh. Sounds like a math term for common sense. He paused. The board wants you back as CEO. I turned to look out the window. The city shimmered in the morning haze, as if trying to apologize for yesterday. And Brad resigned, effective immediately. He tried to blame legal for missing the clause. Legal showed them the signature line, his. Rex barked, maybe at a passing car, maybe at the ghost of karma. I'll think about it, I said. Tom, this is your shot to rebuild everything. Culture, ethics, leadership. The company needs you. I could hear the plea in his voice. Good man. Honest. But I'd seen too many men chase redemption until it killed them. David, when I joined TechFlow, we were 20 people in a garage. We built something that mattered. Then we let people like Brad convince us money mattered more. I'm not sure that's fixable from inside. He didn't argue. Engineers understand entropy. Still, I said, I'll send them an answer by tonight. After we hung up, I opened the front door and stepped outside for the first time in days. The morning air smelled like new asphalt and redemption. Neighbors walked dogs. Delivery drones hummed overhead. A kid biked past with a VR headset still on. The world hadn't changed, but I had. Back inside, I made breakfast the Navy way. Black coffee, 2 eggs, nothing fancy. Rex watched, waiting for the part where I always caved and shared a piece of toast. Some habits survive everything. Then I did something harder than filing patents or fighting corporations. I called my daughter. It rang 3 times. Dad. Hey, kiddo. My throat felt sandpaper dry. You got a minute? Of course. Everything okay? I got fired, I said. Then I unfired myself. She laughed. The first genuine sound I'd heard all week. That's very you. So I told her everything. The glass office, the humiliation, the patent clause, the demo disaster. Not as a brag, just as a confession. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, You actually did it. You beat them without becoming them. Her words landed somewhere deep, where the noise couldn't reach. I didn't do it to win, I said. I did it so they'd remember who built the damn walls before they painted slogans on them. I'm proud of you, Dad. No applause, no background music, just that sentence. After years of silence, it hit harder than any corporate victory ever could. I swallowed. Listen, I know I missed a lot. Birthdays, graduations, too many dinners. Dad, you don't need to. I do. You were right to pull away. I built systems, not relationships. But maybe I can start again. Her voice softened. You already have. We talked another hour. She told me about her kids. A 6-year-old boy obsessed with robots and a 4-year-old who thought all computers lived in clouds. They know about you, she said. They call you the code grandpa. I laughed until Rex barked, jealous of the attention. When we hung up, I realized I wasn't shaking anymore. The adrenaline was gone. What was left was peace. Later that evening, the email came from Board of Directors, TechFlow Dynamics. Subject: Welcome back, Mr. Caldwell. Body, we accept your terms in full. We would be honored if you would return as CEO and lead TechFlow into its next chapter. I stared at the screen for a long time, then started typing. I appreciate the offer, but some rebuilds require demolition first. Consider my involvement as advisory only. Focus on people, not just platforms. Treat engineers like architects, not replaceable parts. And never again confuse innovation with exploitation. P.S. Promote David Kim. He's the future you keep pretending to look for. I hit send and poured myself a double. The city lights blinked on, one by one, a constellation built on human hands. I wasn't angry anymore, not even triumphant, just done. Rex curled up at my feet, and I realized for the first time in decades, I didn't have anywhere to be in the morning. The doorbell rang once. I opened it to find Emily standing there, holding 2 paper bags. "Dinner," she said, "and kids who've been dying to meet their granddog." Behind her, 2 small faces peeked around her legs, eyes wide with curiosity. Rex wagged his tail like a banner. For a moment, I forgot about patents, severance packages, or revenge. This was the real inheritance. Emily smiled. "Mom's parking the car. Hope you don't mind we invited ourselves." I laughed. "Not at all. Just in time, actually." She stepped inside. "In time for what?" I nodded toward the laptop on the counter, still open to the board's email. "To see what freedom looks like." And as the kids chased Rex through the living room, I looked out at the skyline one last time. The same city, same lights, but for the first time they didn't feel like someone else's empire. They felt like home, because revenge fades, but reclaiming your worth, that stays.